Hey everybody, welcome to Student of Sales podcast. I'm with my good frenemies Tyler and Michael. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hola, Phil.
Hey, what's
Good,
going on?
good, good. We're going to be talking about something I'm really passionate about from a leadership perspective, but also from a rep perspective. Where are you spending your time? So today we're going to be talking about training versus coaching. Okay. And we'll go through what we mean by this, but I think a lot of people spend their time training, a lot of people spend their time coaching, what's more effective, where you should be spending your time. So I guess we should start here. What is the difference between training and coaching? And Mace and Tyler, I'm excited to get your kind of answers to this, but for me, it's training is okay, Tyler, here's how you do X. Here's the things that you need to know to do X. And then coaching is okay, here's how we can improve on that. Here's how we can do it better. Okay. So training is here's the initial transfer of knowledge. You own it now. And now, coaching is okay, now that you know that, how can we do it better? How can we say it better? How can we get a better outcome every single time? But that's what my definition would be. Mace, what is the difference between training and coaching for you?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page, Phil. I mean, for me, training, I think of structure. I think of
Yeah.
organization when I think about training. And I also think about, it's teaching people a specific skill set. I think like how to do X, for example, like how to use Salesforce, right?
Right,
Right?
right.
How to use this, like it's the how to of things that are part of their daily activities. And it's more about that initial kind of transfer, like you mentioned, that initial transfer of knowledge and information, understanding, especially when you're talking about someone that's new to the role. And then on the coaching side, I think about sports when it comes to coaching, right?
Right.
And coaching is more about helping people develop an ability and a skill, whether that's listening, questioning, discovery, objection handling. And it's just giving them that instant feedback on and of your observations of them and tips and tricks on how to fine tune that to perfection.
Yeah,
So that's at a high
absolutely.
level. Those are my
Yeah,
kind of
no.
definitions of
So
training and
we're on the
coaching.
same page, Tyler. Is that your definition as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, May said the kind of athletic aspect of it, 'cause that's exactly what I think of, right? Like you got training, right? Like I can go to the gym all the time and you can train, right? It's basically through the repetitions. You're doing the repetitions. So in sales, it'd be your objection handling, your script, your pitch, your questions, whatever it is, right? But it's just basically repetition. So here's the knowledge, and now I'm going to go just practice it, right?
Yeah.
Coaching is the technique, right? It's breaking it down. So like if I'm, again, athletics, it's like, yes, I can just go throw a ball 100 times, right? I'm training my pitch like for baseball or something like that, but actually like coaching around, right? So that ball came off this way. Let's, move your feet position, this and that. So no,
Yeah.
100%. And I think I always want to make this quick point is that, we're going to talk about, coaching here. I think it's really important for managers that they don't get tied down in the supervising and the managing in the role. I just
Yeah.
always want to bring that point up
Yeah.
because don't mistake, you know, supervising to coaching or training. That's
Right.
neither. It's
Yeah.
necessary,
Yeah.
but it's neither. Yeah.
Yeah. You
So
bring a good point up there. Actually, I want to jump in on that. And I say it all the time. It's like I'd rather be called a sales coach than a sales manager.
yeah, me too. I
I
hate
think
that
it's more
word.
about coach than it is managing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So here's a question, and we didn't prep this by the way, so I'm desperate to know your answers on the fly. Um, what percentage of a sales manager's day/week should be spent on coaching or training? Go on, Mace, give it to me.
So their day, I would say at least 50% of the day should be on coaching. The
Okay.
training one, I think that's subjective, right? I think there's some context to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
If I've got new starters, like if I've
yeah,
got a group of new people that are starting, it's a lot of those the next 2 weeks, it's like 80-90% just training,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then 10-20% coaching when they're in real life scenarios. But again, if you're talking, your team is ramped, they're, in process. Yeah, I think above and beyond all the other, kind of responsibilities we have as leaders, that at least half your time should be dedicated to
Okay.
coaching.
All right.
Coach
Mace is at 50%. Tyler, where are you at?
Yeah, it's a cop out answer, but it's going to depend. I mean, I mean that by where is your team in their progression, right? When early doors. Well, let me ask this question. Here's how I always look at it. If I'm in a group setting, I'm training. If I'm one-to-one, I'm coaching. And so, okay, Phil, you gave a look. What do you think on that?
Oh, did I do that with my face? I meant to do it with my mind. I think I think
it's hard to coach from any group session. I think it's harder to. I think that's training because I'm practicing things, sure, but like it's it's just not the same thing to me.
I think it's possible to coach in a group setting, but I take your point respectfully. So I think that's a perfect transition into let's circle back in terms of where leaders should spend their time. And I think we agree that if someone's brand new, first 2, 3, 4 months, whatever, you're doing a lot of training with them. Okay, so I think we're all agreed on that. Like, here's the fundamentals, here's the basics, here's the foundation level knowledge that you need to have to do this job. Okay, I think we're all agreed on that. But where I have issues is like 6 months, a year later, you're still training, you're still teaching fundamentals. 2 years in, you're still focused on training. It's like, no, you need to move to coaching. So a classic mistake I see so many leaders make is they teach them the basics of the 10 most popular objections that they get, and then instead of coaching the shit out of those 10 objections and doing call breakdowns, call collaborations, role plays, all of that stuff on those 10 main objections, they're like, well, here's an 11th one I need to train you on. It's like, no, just stay there, stay in. I would even say,
I was thinking that when you said 10, I was like,
10's too many.
Like, yeah,
it's 4 or 5. Just like
do one, 6 months later, do another one.
But here's the trap that all leaders fall into, which is I want you to look up to me, and I want you to think that I know stuff that you don't. So I want to teach you something new all the fucking time. It's not, no. Like, do the ugly work, do the scut work. Let's get in a room, do the role plays, and do the call breakdowns. That's where you make your money as a leader. And quite honestly, and again, it depends on the role. So I think this is an overgeneralization, but I do think 70% of a sales leader's role should be coaching, on the phone, call listening. Like the other 30% is the admin stuff, the pipeline stuff, like one-on-one stuff like that. But if you're coaching 70% of your week, your team is going to be flying. So for me, the first point, biggest point I want to bring to the table is, if you have an established team that's been more with you for more than 6 months, a year, you need to be spending the majority of your time on coaching those main objections, those main scenarios, situations that are coming up all day, every day. Just coach them as much as you possibly can. And yeah, there'll be new stuff along the way, but it's like, it's not going to be meaningful enough. So hopefully that kind of point makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. And I mean, it just reminds me of, when I think about what to be training on, and you brought up, right, don't go down the path of always having some new flashy kind of thing to train on. It really is focusing on training on the areas that are needle moving areas. Like what's the primary kind of goal that we're trying to accomplish, and what are the moving parts that have the biggest impact on that. So, and again, it will vary from team to team, but I would imagine most in sales, like objection handling is one of those things where, like, if we can get that right, we can book significantly more meetings, we can close significantly more deals. And so, it's important to kind of focus that the coaching, and the training, both elements, on, again, what's gonna turn the dial, right? What's gonna get us closer to our target? What's gonna, now that reminds me of, the one thing model, right? What's the one thing, right, that if we get this right, it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? And I feel like those are the types of topics that you want to focus both training and coaching on, but especially the coaching side.
Well, I think that's where a lot of leaders get it wrong, is how much of that is actually done outside of working hours. right? Because my team's not available to me on the evenings or on the weekends. Like they're just not, but their calls are, their
Yeah.
KPIs are, right? And so like that's where I spend a lot of my time is like, you know, we're not gonna dive into it here because it's too lengthy, but like, you know, you're listening, you know, listening. That's what you do as a leader, just like you do as a salesperson. You know, I'm listening to the numbers, I'm listening to the calls, I'm identifying the areas that I need to be coaching on so that when I'm, you know, around my team, whether it's in the office or whether they're logged on, you know, online, I can spend that time with them getting directly into it and having that impact. Because the last thing you want to be doing is spending a long amount of time with that person. Like, all right, well, what do you think about this? And uncovering those areas, you better goddamn know what they are going into the call, because that salesperson doesn't want to spend an hour just figuring out what the issue is. And that's a whole nother probably topic. But yeah, it's a really good point, Mace. Like, you know, like have the big boulder issues, but you're going to have to work outside of hours to find them.
Absolutely. So that was my big point. You know, Mace, what are one of the key points that you want to bring to the table on this topic?
Key points. So one, I think this is you know, especially if you're new to sales leadership, you know, maybe you're a sales rep that just got promoted and you're kind of like deer in headlights. Like, what do I do? How do I coach? How do I train? How do I manage? One of the greatest tips that was given to me early on in my kind of leadership, as well as in learning and development, was a model called the Tell, Show, Do model.
Okay.
Either of you guys ever heard of this one
Yeah,
before?
yeah.
Well,
Right.
yeah, I stole
So,
it from you. So yeah.
did you? Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie, right?
Yeah.
So again, if you're new to coaching and training, like this is your go-to, right? Again, it's called the Tell, Show, Do model. And it's super simple. All it means is it's this: tell them what you want them to do. That's the first step. Tell them what you want them to do. Step two, show them what you want them to do and how to do it. And then have them go do it. Tell, show, do. This was a
Gotcha.
game changer for me when I first got into leadership and I was exposed to, no, you're not going to sit behind your computer screen and look at emails and Salesforce reports all day. No, you're going to be in the trenches. You're going to, I hired you to coach, train, and develop, make them like you were when you were on the phones. And this was a game changer. It really simplified that whole concept of, okay, how do I transfer my knowledge, my wisdom, my understanding, my experience to someone? And is tell them how to do it. Tell them what you're doing. Tell them why you're doing it. Show them how to do it. Show them how you do it. Show them how they could do it. And then put them in the driver's seat and let them do it. So that's if I can give one key advice to a sales manager that is trying to figure out, you know, how to coach and train, I would say utilize that model. If there's anything else, personalize your training and coaching to the individual, because everybody learns differently.
Right.
Everybody takes in information differently. Some are visual learners, some are, you know, auditory learners, some are very hands-on. It's just like, tell me what to do, I'll go do it. So figuring out how the people on your team, your talent learns and internalizes information and puts it in action is going to be a really key point to really make the Tell, Show, Do model stick, is by personalizing it to the individuals. So those are my takeaways, my
I
points.
think managers are guilty on that, where they'll paint everybody with the same brush and they'll train everybody the same way, mates. And unfortunately, I had some negative experiences with that as I was kind of learning it, starting out in sales. You know, because everybody learns different ways, and everybody, you know, like some people need the, you know, like the really soft arm around you trainer. Listen, you've got this, buddy. Some people want to say, hey, Phil, Tyler can do this better, so I'm expecting you to step up, like, just maybe competitive training. So there's so many different types of, training that's available. So I 100% agree with that. Like personalizing is a huge approach.
And I think you kind of hinted on it there too. Part of what you said and what you said there earlier, Phil, is like when you're doing that, like, it's got to be very individualized, and you've got to let, I love this phrase, let the paint dry.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So especially when you are moving from, train them something, but then coach them, get it right. Like get that movement, that pattern, that, pitch, objection, whatever it is, get it down and then move on. People will move very quickly. Like it's just, you'll come across the very rare person, and they'll be your superstars. They can learn, retain, and then implement feedback very readily. There are people like that out there. Just the sad, I don't know, sad reality, but like the reality people have to learn is like most people aren't that quick, right? It takes a while for somebody to learn something, to understand it, and then be able to implement it. And so let that paint dry. But at the other side of it, that person that does do that stuff, then you better keep up with them, which kind of would be my point, right? So one of my points is I think as one thing I think for a lot of leaders is I don't think most leaders have any clue how high their game has to be. And I think that's why a lot of people, talk about their poor experiences because as a leader, like when you're a coach, right? We made this comment earlier before we jumped on here, but you are a life coach. I think sales is unique where people bring their entire, they gather their whole outside life and they just carry it on into the office, right? My wife's an architect, like, no way does that happen in her office. That shit just doesn't fly. But it's something that salespeople like I'm not going to get into the psychology of why it happens, but salespeople drag their entire personal life into an office and they lay it at the feet of the company, right? Like, here's what's going on. Coach me on this. And so you better be able to, like, yes, sales coach, but financial coach, real estate coach. You're going to have to be a health wellness coach. You're goddamn right. You're going to be a mindset coach. You're going to be a psychiatrist, like all of those things. And so as their coach, right, if you want to hit your numbers, you better get your A game on all of those. You better have your shit together. And that's what I tell people anyway, when you're getting into leadership. Like, you prove to me you can manage those aspects of your life. I will then trust you to manage those aspects of somebody else's life. So I think for me, the number one thing is you better be prepared for the level of coach you really truly have to be at, right? This isn't your, I want to lose 5 pounds at 24-hour fitness type coaching you have to be at, right?
Right.
It's the, like, I'm training for the Olympics, right? But I don't know how to, I can't run yet. I don't even own shoes. Can you teach me how to be a sprinter? That's what you're doing with people.
You're totally right, Tyler, because sometimes they, sales execs, AEs, SDRs, they need to respect your life game before they can respect your sales game. They want to see that you've got your shit together, you're organized, stuff like that. And that's when your content becomes more valuable because you're where they want to be, so you're at that spot in life where they want to be.
Well, how many times have you heard, like, and I see it in forums all the time where people talk about, oh, my manager's jumping on calls and he sucks at closing, or, this and that. Like, first of all, if you can't, like, yes, you want to hire people that are better than you or whatever, but like, you better be a damn good salesperson because your buy-in from your sales team is on your sales ability more than anything else. So you better, if you read 10 books last year, read 20 this year.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. The same way we say in sales, right? People buy from people that they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
Right. Sales reps, right? They perform for people that they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it is important as a leader to develop that early on to give them that confidence in you. It's part of the reason why I still, from time to time, I make cold calls. I take demos and I take meetings. Part of it is part of it is selfish to me because I want to make sure I still got it. I want to stay sharp. But a part of it also is, I want to show my investment, my skin in the game as well too. And when reps see or hear a call from me, it gives them confidence and trust in the coaching, training, and feedback that I give them. And so, if you are a sales manager, you're not, from time to time taking a sales call, closing a deal, creating an opportunity out of thin air. Right. You've got to be doing those things. They're huge trust and confidence builders, and it'll make your life easier giving coaching, training, and feedback. Again, I take it back to sports. It's like I remember, my son, he was playing youth basketball, and the basketball coach was a volleyball coach, and it's like the kids didn't have confidence in the coach because they had never coached the sport before. And so I think there's an element to development that it has a lot to do with, again, like you said, Tyler, us, being on our A game.
And anybody watching this that is a salesperson, if you're, and it happens, right? You get brought that new script, that new structure, that new whatever, right? A process, blah, blah, blah. Just turn to him and say, oh my God, yeah, no, I'm excited to use it. This is my best advice I give you. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that to me. I can't wait to, implement it. Can you do me a favor just so I get it right? Can you run through that with a real customer just so I can experience and use that as kind of my model moving forward?
Ooh,
You
that's a pro
will
tip.
be back on the old structure.
That's
So
so
like
quick.
there is, but look, either one or two things will happen, right? You'll stop them dead in their tracks because we all know those people that love to roll out, oh, we should do this, that haven't been on the phone with a customer for years. That is insane to me, right?
Yeah.
Like that's absolutely insane. Or they say, yeah, sure enough, and then you get to see how it's supposed to be done. Either way, it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
It's funny though, right? If your coaching and your training and your feedback, it's going to be better received if you're the type of leader that is willing to do anything that you ask your reps to do.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Like it's transferable. So yeah, you can't just roll out a script that you just kind of you found on the internet or you feel like you created yourself without some evidence, right? It's like I think it does go a long way. I know this topic is training versus coaching, but again, if if you're doing the things that you're asking your reps to do, that's going to go a long way when you get in those coaching sessions and you're giving
Right.
them feedback in those
Well,
training
and that's
sessions.
what's going to move them from training to coaching, right? Training is like, here's this objection, go work on it. Coaching is, let me show you how to do it. Let me walk through that with you and like actually, like get down in the trenches. And let me ask you guys this question, because I was just thinking about this. Do you think that is unique? So for us, like we're in tech sales, right? Do you think that's unique to like kind of like the sort of, I guess, the bar and maybe the, how do I want to put this? I mean, I know how close I am with my reps. I know how much time I spend coaching them. I know how much like how much they bring in. Do you think that's unique to our
No,
industry and
not at all.
sales, or do you think that's ubiquitous across all sales?
So you walk into a restaurant and you're like, oh, hey, I'm Phil. I'll be your waiter today, and this is Tyler who's shadowing me to
I would
learn
send
how
the
to do
food
it.
back just the moment I saw you. That's who's
Well,
going
I was
back.
looking. I was, believe it or not, trying to buy a car the other night, and oh, this is Brian who's going to shadow me as I show you around the car. It's like every industry does it. Like so like you're absolutely right. This isn't the first time someone's kind of leading from the front or how to go about training or coaching. Like the best way to people learn by doing, which I think is a great question, Tyler. But one of my final thoughts is just a very quick story just along that, which is this is probably 7-8 years ago. We had this really dodgy call recording software, and it just took ages to find calls. And my manager at the time, or VP at the time, was like, listen, send me a few examples of your guys getting around this objection. And it just took me like hours trying to find the calls of them dealing with this objection. And he called me over later. He's like, where's the calls? And I was like, I can't find them. He was like, well, just get in a room and role play them. Come see me in 30 minutes and tell me who can handle the objection and who can't. Sometimes, like think of all the technology that's at your fingertips, but I'm sorry, if you're in the office with someone, just get in a room, do a quick role play, or put your chairs, go old school, back to back, just do role play. Or if you're on an environment like this, turn your cameras off, just do a role play. It's like, some of the best coaching you can do with your team is just jump on a quick role play with them. And I truly believe that.
Phil, how much time in a week? Honest question. And it may have changed now given your, elitist status.
Zoo tigerness.
Yeah, your zoo tigerness. But how much time in a week do you spend listening to sales calls? If not now, it may not be just anybody watch this, may not be as applicable to his current position, but how much time do you?
I do one a day, which is generally an hour a day. So I'm countering my point of 70% of my week. It's a little bit of a different role, but I do an hour a day, and then we have 3 calls a week where we do as a team. So basically 8 calls a week, and it's a small team of 5 people. So we're listening to 8 of each other's calls between 5 people, which actually is quite a lot for a small team. But and they're pretty skilled salespeople as well, and they don't really enjoy it. It's not the sexy stuff. They want to be trained more than coached. And that's kind of that's a thing as sales guys get more skill as well. But what about you?
I think that's pretty normal across the line in sales, is because again, they want like, if it's funny because if you ask anybody, I was thinking about this is like if you ask any salesperson, what do you want to be trained on, right? They're going to say closing, or they're going to say that objection handling, right? Which a lot of them do, but they want you to do it and you to because it takes the spotlight off them. When in reality, it's like, all right, well, let's the coaching is what they really need, which is let's listen to a call, let's talk about it, let's work on these parts. I actually do. With my team, I have one dedicated half-hour block with each one of them per week. We have a 2-call model, so we do each part of it. Where in that half hour, all we do is listen to a call, and it's quite fun because we put it on like the 1 1/4, 1.5 speed, so it moves pretty quick. But yeah, so I'd say in a given week, I'm probably 4, 5. I'm doing 20 plus hours a week, like. Kind of in office listening to calls, and then I usually listen to on the weekend. I spend another 5 or 6 hours on the weekend just listening to calls to kind of strategize. Like I listen to a ton of calls, but we run a lot of it's a high volume. What I'm in right now is very high volume, so that's what it takes. Otherwise, I'm just gonna get left behind, and I'm gonna be coaching on stuff that's not relevant to my guys anymore.
Yeah. What about yourself, Mace?
Yeah, so you remember the Sales on Rails model, Phil?
Yeah.
Right? So I do a midday check, so particularly for the SDR. So at the midway point, I check the SDR calls, and I'm listening. I spend half an hour to an hour listening to anything that's disposition is like not interested, for example, because I want to hear what the objections were, right? So that's usually my go-to. Then at the end of the day, I've got an hour blocked off to listen to like the second half of the day. That's where I'll listen to any booked meetings that they've got and some of the other non-interested calls. And then I've got my one-to-ones with each of the reps once a week. And for half an hour, we're listening to calls and we're breaking those down. And it depends, right? It depends on the week. It depends on the number of kind of, connections they're having. We might listen to 2 calls as coaching feedback. We might listen to 3 or 4 calls. It just kind of depends on how short those calls are and what it is we're covering, kind of based on what I listen to in my reviews. So I go into each one of my one-to-ones. Here are the calls that I want to break down. Here's where I found some areas to provide some coaching, training, some feedback. Here's some patterns that I've picked up in listening to your calls. So that's kind of the model, and it's kind of taken from our days back together, how we used to.
Back in the day.
What's funny is we talk about this, and I'm thinking about a rep listening to this. And they're like, yeah, but what I want to know, how do I this person that said, call me next quarter? How do I bring that back? How do I do this? How do I they always want that strategy on like I'm at this this point. How do I get that back? What we're saying is no. We want to make sure it doesn't happen again. You probably can't do anything. You've already effed that opportunity up. It's, and that's usually where salespeople, you do your pipeline management, your strategy and all that stuff. But typically when a rep's coming to you like, all right, here's what happened, right? It's a little too late. Like you gotta let that thing breathe.
I feel like they're standing over the dead body for about an hour and a half. And then they're like, hey doctor, come here, help me. Like, can you help me with this guy? It's like, no. Listen, guys, I'm just conscious of time. What an amazing session there. Great podcast from 2 angles, actually. I thought this was going to be more leadership, but actually from an AE standpoint or SDR, it's like, okay, cool. What am I receiving from my leadership? Am I receiving more training, coaching? Is it being personalized? What could I get more of? How could I be getting that? And from a leadership perspective, where am I spending my time? What percentage of my week is spent on training versus coaching? Look at the the tenure in your team. If you're if you've got a team full of people there 2 or 3 years, yeah, absolutely, coaching's where you want to be spending your time and stuff like that. But great session, guys. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Mace. Have a great evening, everybody.
See you guys.
See everybody.
Click like, subscribe, all that stuff. Bye.
All that fun stuff.